Welcome to Rainbow Soul Podcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul Soulstrology Astrology Forecast. I'm glad you're here. We had kind of a nutty week. Like, things just kind of got busy, and that unfortunate we were unable to include lacrosse. But we are here now to give you your weekly forecast. I'm Hollis Taylor, and I'm one of your astrologers for today's forecast. And you can learn more about me at my website, divineandrogen.com, which is in the description.
Hi there, I'm Bright Hawk. You can always learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com. I'm a musician. I'm the author of The Dancing Hippo. And of course, the hippo dances under the moon. And that's what I always cover in our astrology report, is a moon report.
Beautiful, beautiful moon. Yes. So, my friends, I want to invite you to take a few deep breaths. I just want you to feel the floor under your feet, the seat under your bottom. And I invite you to feel the warm air of the sun at its height right now in its beautiful Leo. And the sun shines down its beautiful rays on your skin, holding you in peace and just holding you with in warmth and strength. As the sun shines down on you, you can feel it inspiring your heart and pushing you forward, pushing you into your life to be yourself, to be your authenticity. To hold yourself in that warmth and growing energy, to feel yourself grow under the rays of the sun. And allow it to warm your heart so that you may always follow your heart. And remember that the sun always leads the way. That's the way you're going. Always towards the sun. We can be grateful for the life-giving light of the sun. Focus to come back into your body. back into your here and now, right here in the astrology forecast with us. Stretch your hands and allow yourself to come back into your body, open your eyes, and become present in the here and now. Well done, Bright Hawk. Woohoo! Thank you. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I
It was
appreciate
a lovely
that.
journey.
Well, the sun is so intense right now, right? For most of us, it's hot in some parts of the world and definitely intense up here in the mountains. If you go outside, my dog is having a drink. It's so hot, right? Okay, and so it's very intense right now. The sun is at its height, and the sun is actually rules the sign of Leo. So that just means that when you look for the sun in your chart, you should always see when you read your sun sign. So let's just say you're a Virgo. You always want to look at the Leo house. You always want to look at where Leo is in your chart, because that is going to be connected. That house will probably influence how you express your sun sign. So that's essentially what that means, is like, so if you're a Scorpio sun and you're listening today, and then you look on your chart, you look for Leo, you see if there's any other planets in there and see what house it's in. And whatever house it's in, it's probably going to influence who you are and where you're headed. And I think the funniest thing that I ever heard somebody say about sun signs is you never actually are fully your sun sign.
Really?
Yeah, because you're always trying to be that.
Oh, you're always emerging into it and never quite it.
Right. So then I was
Fascinating.
like, and then they were saying that sometimes Libras can really struggle in relationship. Not that they don't get in relationship, because they certainly do, but that sometimes it can feel like Libras are like grasping for a relationship. And I'm like, oh, I know some Libras like that. And it might depend on, some other things like what their seventh house and things like that. But like
Libra rules the seventh house of
Virgos
relationships.
and Virgos, right? And Virgos are not as anal as you think they are. So like, yeah, they're organized, but a Virgo sun is never that organized. And I'm living proof. If you could see my desk right now, it's a hot mess. And so like, I mean, it's just it's not it's you're always grasping for it, okay? And so every sun sign, regardless of what your sun sign is, when you read it, there might be parts of it that you're like, yeah, I don't really do that, right? And like when I read Virgo, I'm like, I'm not that anal, and I'm not consistent, and I can be clean, but I'm not consistent about it. Like it'll get messy and then I'll clean it, and then it'll get messy.
You're not anal about stuff like that.
No, I'm just not. I just don't have time for it, because I'm too
lived with
focused on other
Virgos,
things.
and they are not either.
Right.
Yeah,
Almost no Virgo is, right?
They can be particular about certain things, about whatever it is, everybody. But I kind of
But it's
assumed
like one or
everybody.
two things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
It's
my
not.
experience.
It's not like cleaning or organization or whatever. It's
Yeah.
usually about one or two things. Yeah. So, and I often find that the rising sign is more of that. Like if you're a Virgo rising, you're a Virgo rising, you're more Virgo than me.
In some ways.
And I'm always like, okay, she's more Virgo than me.
You're a good team that
It's
way.
weird.
You're
It's weird.
complimenting.
Yeah, it's weird. And then like sometimes I could be a little bit more Scorpio than a Scorpio sun,
Right.
and I've met Scorpio suns that I'm like, but I'm even
interesting.
more intense. I'm more intense than a Scorpio is. And so then when you get to know me, you're like, oh, she's really intense and really deep. And it's like, and it's because I'm a Scorpio rising. Okay. So I just want to encourage you to make sure you know what your rising sign is, because, we often think that our sun sign is so important. And it is, because that's where you're headed. And that's what you're trying to be. That's what you're constantly striving to be.
Right.
But your rising sign is actually a little bit more of who you actually are. It's when a person really gets to know you, you're more your rising sign. So I always laugh when people try to do like, oh, are Sagittariuses and Scorpios, are they compatible? And I'm like, well, what about the rest of the chart? Who knows? I mean, that's just where you're headed. That's like a sliver of importance when you're thinking about if you're compatible with somebody.
Oh yeah,
So,
there's so much more to look at in a compatibility chart than your sun sign, that's for sure.
and then also every person's chart, like no two Libras are alike, no two Virgos are alike,
Every one of us
no
is
two
one of a
Scorpios,
kind.
no two Scorpios alike. And let me just also say, if you know a toxic person, okay, we'll use Scorpio. The Scorpio, often people are like, oh, I dated a Scorpio and I hate them, right? Okay. And don't hate all Scorpios. I learned that the hard way. It's not an accurate way to do astrology. It's actually inaccurate because, first of all, toxic traits are not usually like the way they come out might be related to astrology, but it doesn't mean that every person that's a Scorpio is a toxic person. It just means that a person that is a Scorpio might tend to be harsh with their tongue. A Virgo might be judgmental. And these are the shadow pieces that Bright Hawk often talks about when she compares like the moon and the to different signs, because there's always, in my opinion, there's always kind of a more light side to every zodiac sign and a dark side to each zodiac sign. And we all have shadow. We all have pieces of us that are not the greatest. And, because if you were perfect, you wouldn't be a human. So, we all have dark pieces about us. And so focus more on that. Some people are going to express that way because they're toxic. So they're toxic and they're expressing all their shadow pieces instead of trying to express their light pieces. That's all that's happening. And so you're seeing the unfortunate side of them. And everybody will eventually have a bad day. And I'm talking more about toxic people that seem to like live and breathe toxicity. I'm sure we all know people like that. And those people are not usually all the same sign. I assure you they're not. They're not. It's just how they express their toxicity. Okay. So,
well, let's get to the astrology report for this week, August 14th to the 20th.
Yeah.
And we have a new moon this week in Leo, which is why we keep talking about Leo and the sun. And the moon is also in Leo. We know, of course, that Venus is retrograding in Leo. Lots going on in Leo, has been for a long time. And
well, in the beginning of the week, though, I mean, we do start off with a grand trine in Earth, even. So that's really great for manifestation, especially when it comes to money, and other, things. You might be finding yourself having a great harvest in your garden if you have one, or other things. Other great things might be coming to fruition, and with action and with Jupiter in Taurus, it could also be kind of a surprising week with Uranus's aspect, and Uranus is part of the Grand Trine. So it might just happen without you really thinking about it. So is Pluto. Pluto is also part of that, and Pluto's in Capricorn. So that has a lot to do with money and business, but it's also an Earth sign. Okay. And there is also a lot of sextiles like Jupiter and Uranus sextiling. So first of all, Uranus is sextiling Kronos, which has been going on for a while and will be going on for a couple of weeks. Uranus and Kronos in a sextile is Kronos is very much about amazing upper things. So all of a sudden, an expert could show up. All of a sudden, things are high up in the air, like flying. Okay. So those are the kinds of things that Kronos represents. It represents things that are high, or very, not just very good, but that are exceptional. Okay. So that includes exceptional criminals. Okay. But usually because it's in a sextile, that would be Uranus, and that's going to mean suddenly. Okay. And then also Chiron trining the sun and Venus in retrograde. So Venus in retrograde is making us revisit our emotions and what we love, and making us question what we love. So, if you have some old wounds around family, or things from your childhood that are just lingering there, don't be surprised if like Venus kind of rubs on that part of your heart a little bit, and kind of says, hey, how important is this to you? And I don't believe that you have to stay committed to toxic family. If family doesn't feel good, well, for fucking A, man, just get away from them, okay? It's the best thing I ever did for myself. But maybe that's not what you need to do, but you need to assess what you need to do. And that's what Venus retrograde is all about.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you can see the stellium we have in Leo in this chart. It's in the 10th house. You have the sun, you have Venus, then Lilith, then the moon, then Juno, which is still in Cancer. And then look straight across the chart, and who's sitting there at the bottom but Pluto?
Pluto's down there in Capricorn, just hanging out, 28,
Right.
29 degrees. He's
Yeah.
just been hanging out there for quite some time now.
Goodness, tell me about it. Opposing my moon.
I'd almost
The
like
moon-
him.
the moon is returning to the moon, just went over my moon, and that Pluto opposition, it's just been sitting there for a long time. So if you find yourself having a quick mood switch change, get triggered or something, try to breathe, try to let it go. I know it's challenging, but try not to give in to being the worst of yourself and throwing a temper tantrum, because it usually doesn't solve anything. So just, I don't know anything about it. Ask for a friend. I know everything about it. We're talking about myself. Okay,
And
but
it's also squaring Vesta. So, Vesta is about where we mean to go.
okay,
And so Mars, since it's in a square, could easily, like, you could lose your temper about stuff. So Vesta is a spiritual, like, people, like, especially you, Bright Hawk, where you're kind of like a person that's like, I don't want to have the anger outburst because, and I've heard other people say this, it feels like a burst in your energy field.
yeah,
It feels like you've
blown a
busted,
hole.
like blown a hole in your energy field. And sometimes it does feel like that. And then if you put it, if you put Mars in there, that's Mars tends to do that.
Right.
It's the god of war, tends
Right.
to bust things up.
Yeah.
And Vesta is about your spiritual practice. And so there you can see
Yeah.
the square. But maybe spirit is just asking you to try to bring that energy, try to find a different way to express anger. I think sometimes
you're right.
anger can be expressed in different ways that don't feel so damaging.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware. I'll be very honest with you folks, because this is the long-term thing. You listen to us. Thanks for listening to us. Hopefully every week. I'm having my second Saturn return. I'm having a Mars return in Virgo, and I'm having a Jupiter return in Taurus. All three at the same time. And those are all, the one that moves the fastest is Mars in those three. but they're all like just hanging in there. So
And it's really healthy for you to look at your chart at least once a week, if not every day.
oh my God.
Especially if you're learning astrology, just so you can kind of see what the transits feel like. What does it feel like? Like right now, my Venus is naturally Venus retrograde in my natal chart. And Venus is moving over top of my Venus right now in retrograde. What does that feel like? It makes me look back and go, well, I've come a long way. Because when you're born with Venus in retrograde, it sometimes can make you feel like you have low self-esteem. And so I've come a long way. Because I'm 47, and I've grown up a lot, and I have way higher self-esteem than I did when I was 20. It did make me review a few things, especially related to like my family and stuff. But I always come back to I love myself, and I'm glad that Venus doesn't like trigger depression or like self-hatred and stuff like that. I don't really, which is the way it is. That if it's in your natal chart, you can have especially in Leo, you can turn it towards yourself. So Venus is retrograde in your natal chart. If you find yourself pointing your
criticism
and stuff like that towards yourself, it's just part of Venus retrograde.
Be kind to yourself.
Just learn to get over that, and it will change.
But other than that, that the moon is getting closer and closer to the sun, which is when it's going to be a new moon. It'll be on the 16th. It's pretty quiet. There's not a lot of other you have that Pluto opposition, but that's about it.
Yeah, I do have the oppositions
of square to the north node.
What, Pluto?
No, the moon would be square to the north node.
Yeah. Well, close.
Or maybe
it's a pretty large orb for the moon. Yeah, it's pretty large orb for the moon, at 3 degrees. And
well, the moon,
that's 6 degrees already.
Yeah, the moon moves very quickly, as we all know. Couple degrees, it moves through a sign in a couple of days, which is why I'm always sort of refreshing with us what's happening that way. And so just for your refresher, when we talk about the moon in Leo, we're talking about the moon in Leo being affectionate. And of course, when we think about Leo, we think about a noble leader, don't we? There's so much loyalty. There's, thoughtful how to be a good leader, right? Hopefully. So there's some exuberance and creativity and broad-mindedness, and they can be very colorful. Let's face it, Leos love to be the center of attention, fun-loving. The challenge for Leo, of course, is arrogance. Let's just say that one straight up. They can be self-indulgent. It can be all about me. They can be narcissists. They can be conceited, overbearing, even a bully. But on the noble side of the moon in Leo, think of that affectionate, purring kitty that, is a great leader, hopefully. And, but totally capable of relaxing, right? When it's time to relax.
Right. And speaking of leaders, Zeus is at 22 degrees Libra, and it's in opposition to Chiron in Aries, which is also kind of a leadership zodiac. Aries is the leader of the zodiac, actually, and tends to be the one that gets us off and going. So it also makes me think about that fiery energy, and with an opposition like that, it really makes me think about toxic leadership and recognizing what toxic leadership looks like. I think we can see it in the courtrooms right now. All of the toxic leader of our the old toxic leader of our country, he really is showing us exactly what toxic leadership looks like. And so if you needed an example, that's where it is. And that's where it all comes from, and that's why he's there. And that's why he's here on planet Earth, if you ever wonder, why is this guy here? He's such a, such a terrible person. I want you to come back to recognizing that some people are here on planet Earth to show us what not to be. Okay. So when someone is really, really toxic like that guy, everybody knows I'm talking about that redheaded weirdo. Right? Is he redheaded or is he blonde? I don't know. I don't know. Tito. Okay, so that guy, Trump, right? Okay, so the Trumpster. And so what I want to say is that he's a toxic guy, right? We all know that. And he's an example, a big example on stage to Americans to say, is this really what you value? Because we need to really look at ourselves and say, what about us is attracted to people like that? Now, you personally probably were never attracted to him, but maybe there are some other people in your life that are toxic leaders, and you can be like, what did I see in them? And can I change myself enough? Can I love myself enough? Can I put myself first? Can I not give in that way? Can I listen to the red flags when they fly up? And that's really what this is about, because Zeus is about leadership. Zeus is about leadership and about especially like good leadership versus toxic leadership. And Chiron is also a sort of leader in that he's the wounded healer.
Right.
And oftentimes we get wounded by ugly leaders, and then later we go, oh my God, don't do that. Right? Okay. Like we get really bad examples, and then there's a part of us that recognizes, that's what makes a toxic leader. So that's right there. That's a big red line in the middle. That's what that's all about. Especially with Zeus over there on the horizon there in Libra, and Zeus is sort of saying, what's the balance? What does it really look like? What is justice? And Zeus is trying to bring justice to things. You see that? Zeus is trying to bring justice because that's Libra, which is about justice and balancing the scales. So and both of the and Chiron in Aries is about leadership, really, because Chiron is the wounded healer and Aries is about leadership.
Lots of oppositions.
Yes, there are a lot of
Mars
oppositions.
opposite Neptune. Feels like it reinforces what you just said.
Yes. So there's a lot of that, and that opposition comes more into play later in the week. So
is it a Grand Cross?
No, not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. A Grand Cross is supposed to be in like the same sign, and it should be almost the perfect degree. Like, we rarely have a Grand Cross because it has to be almost. There's not like an 8-degree orb on everything. It's more like a 2. It's more like a 1-degree orb
or something.
and it usually has to be on the like. I'm not sure, but it's not that.
Okay.
So anyway, so the next day on Tuesday, tomorrow, the Sun and Lilith are conjunct. So that's very much about feminine passion and stuff. You can see they're right on top of each other at the same degree in Leo. And that's very much about female empowerment, feminine empowerment. Where are we headed? And look at all the female judges in our world right now. If there are some other women bosses and things like that you're dealing with, women in power, that's kind of what we're looking at, especially because it's trining Chiron. It's trying to show us that women can hold their boundaries, that women can be stern when they need to be. And maybe sometimes women need to be bitches. I personally am okay with that word. I think that sometimes women need to be a bitch. And if you want to call it that, and I just see it as people use that word as a way of saying that a woman is standing up for herself, that a woman is standing in her power and holding her boundaries. And so, I think that that's okay. I think it's sometimes to be strong and to just be okay with saying no, and being okay with saying, no, you can't do that. Wrong. Don't do that. And I think women are here to do that for us. So I'm grateful so I find it interesting that tomorrow pretty much the Sun and Lilith come into pretty much the same degree.
Mm. Well, on the 15th, sorry there, the moon is still in Leo. Obviously, it's creeping up there on the sun. This is what we call a dark moon. You know, you've gone from a crescent to the dark moon to the new moon, right? So it's going to be a powerful new moon in Leo because um, of the placement, the stellium, a lot of things, just a lot of potent energy. So we always want to encourage and say, good job if you take a moment to honor the new moon, do a ritual, light a candle, whatever works for you. Just take a little time to consider what's your next thing, what you want to manifest, how to make your dreams come true. That the energy is right for that. So it's kind of a good idea. The stellium in Leo with the moon, Venus, Sun, Lilith, all that energy is, there's that they want to help you create your best life. That literally is what that says.
And with the part of fortune in Libra, if there was some sort of fairness or something like that, you want to look and see where Libra is in your chart and see where the part of fortune is. And that's where it is in your chart right now. It's in your Libra house. It moves pretty quick. It will be sextiling most of the planets and stuff throughout the day in Leo. Okay, so that's Venus in retrograde. So just be careful about how you spend your money, and and pay attention to feminism and things like that. But it's more about like where you're going and what you're meant to do and how you're expressing your skills in order to probably make money or to get some sort of fortune. Okay, because money's not always a fortune that you're looking for. So so you just want to pay attention to that. It's sextiling a lot of them throughout the day, and so that's gonna mean that it's gonna happen very easily for you. It's gonna just sort of come in. Okay.
There could be a little bit of challenge with the moon squaring Jupiter and squaring Uranus, but it's in a trine to Chiron.
Okay.
So it's just usually squares, they're a chance to make a decision. They don't always have to be, the worst thing in the world. It's like, okay, so it's left or right. It's this way or that way. What are you going to do? So that could be part of that day as well.
Yeah, and Pluto's still in opposition to Juno.
Yep, gonna be
relationship and Venus. I find it interesting that that's happening at the same time Venus is in retrograde.
And Venus is conjunct the moon.
Relationships, just take a look at relationships. Whatever needs to change about them will. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. Thank goodness Juno will move more into Leo, which will move a little bit more away from that opposition as Venus finishes her retrograde. And I think that it's interesting that there's a lot of things going on over there in Libra too, with the South Node. The South Node is, conjunct the part of fortune. So if there was something in the past, maybe you'll get paid, maybe some old debts come up or something. It might depend, but you'll get like the money from it. Like maybe somebody owes you $20 or $50 or something and they finally pay it. That's what I mean by that, old debts. Or something that you invested in a while ago or something that you came from. Maybe you'll get maybe that will come through for you. And because the part of fortune is conjunct the South Node. And also we'll continue with the square. Pluto's still squaring the nodes. It's still there is a yod with Pluto and Neptune pointing up to the moon, right? I guess you've seen that too. But the moon, since the moon is conjunct Lilith, it would also be pointing there. So I find it interesting, the two of them together, the moon and Lilith.
Yeah.
Oh boy. And the moon is very effeminate, and so is Lilith. And so between the two of them, it's sort of like female power, but it's female intuitive, independent power. I would definitely call it very lesbian. Mostly just because you're putting those two female energies together.
Yeah, I get that for sure. I just think sort of the warrior badass.
Well, Lilith is kind of a sexual energy anyway.
Yeah, and then you throw in all of that fun stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's been a long time finger of God that continues to be active, let's put it that way. And it's interesting how it just keeps going from female energy to female energy. You know, the point was been, you know, at different times it's been Venus, now it's Lilith. You know, it's just interesting. It just keeps pointing. We often say astrology points out themes. It doesn't point to it once, it points to it many times. And that's when you start to go, oh.
And with Uranus and Neptune, Uranus is very like sudden and quick, and it can also be sort of the unexpected. And with Neptune, also about illusions and delusions. And the two of those are sextiling at the bottom of a yod, and they're both pointing up at Zeus and Ceres, but more so on Zeus. Is a little bit stronger towards Zeus actually, because it's at 22 degrees. And so what ends up happening there is that it kind of says to people like Trumpster, unexpected busting down illusions and things like that. So because that man's definitely under some illusions.
For
So
sure.
yeah, so I mean I can see that happening there too.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of fascinating to watch. And unfortunate that our system takes so long to make it happen. All right. And if we go on to, that's Wednesday. So I wouldn't be surprised if something does go down Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, but I think a bunch of stuff is happening every day, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
It seems like it's every day. And then of course on Thursday, the 17th, the part of fortune is going to move into Scorpio. Okay. So it's going to bring us fortune, especially wherever your Scorpio house is. So that could be your body, that could be your identity or your looks or anything like that. Especially ways that make you feel fortunate. Okay. That could be anything. So that's great news. For me, because I have a doctor's appointment on that day. Because Scorpio is in my first house because I'm a Scorpio rising, right? Okay. And so then that what would make me feel fortunate is to have good health, right? So that would be a good thing in my favor on that day. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to point you at. I'm just trying to use me as an example there.
Yeah. Well, on that day, on the 17th, the Virgo moon is a waxing crescent at this point, and it's trining Jupiter. So yay, more yumminess, blessings.
Nice.
And you know, it's opposing Saturn. That is what it is. I don't know how to read that particularly. Virgo opposite the Saturn in Pisces.
Well, they have a little bit of a orb, but not too bad. It will happen probably just that day, early in the day. And so with the moon in Virgo, I would say it's very practical, and even with Saturn. And so if they're opposing each other, but Saturn's in Pisces. So I would say, but the moon tends to control and have a lot to do with water. And it tends to be like, like if you think about it, like tides and back and forth. And oppositions tend to be back and forth too. So there might just be a tide of emotion that day, especially related to Saturn, or related to your system and structures. And so, yeah, I don't think it would be a particularly bad thing. And is the moon void at that point?
So let's see.
8 degrees and the sun's at 24. No, you're better with that part.
No, but it's not no, that happens next week.
Okay.
So the sun is not void. It's a waxing sun, and
a waxing moon.
A waxing moon. And so what I wanted to just run over the features of a Virgo moon. Hollis, great job. Virgo, practical and intelligence. So practical intelligence. It can be very intellectual, very meticulous, industrious, steadfast, a lot of positive responsible, thoughtful approach, caring, nurturing, can be critical. We know on the challenge side, high strung, a little on the standoffish or argumentative. Virgos are sometimes on the Virgo moons can be hypochondriacs. But they bring a thoughtful approach to life, a practical intelligence. And so I love that. I love that because that stellium having that vibe in Virgo feels really positive to me. And on that day, on the 17th, Wednesday, I think I already mentioned it's in a trine to Jupiter. So that really brings a nice flowing, blessed energy.
Yeah.
And
Jupiter is bigger than everything.
Isn't that the truth?
My
ruling planet, Jupiter rules.
Jupiter tends to be kind of on the big side. Yeah. So on Friday, the part of fortune is actually going to like sextile the Pallas Athena, which is your strategy. So really think about that. If you have some sort of surgery or something like that going on, or if you have some sort of because the part of fortune is going to be wherever Scorpio is in your chart. If you have some sort of strategy going on with work, if you have a strategy going on with something else, wherever Scorpio is, including relationships, okay? So look and see, where is Scorpio in my chart, and then figure out, because the part of fortune is there on this day, on the 18th, but it's going to have a lot to do with your strategy around that. And I think Pallas Athena in Virgo is very strong, because Virgo is very strategic. And so I feel like if we don't really talk about like where things rule or whatever, but Pallas Athena feels like it would be strong in Virgo, because they both accentuate those same sort of traits, right, of strategy.
Higher qualities.
Yeah. So and Virgo tends to also be feminist, and Pallas Athena is a feminist.
And Virgo's almost the only sign in the whole zodiac that has that feminist marker. Almost everything else is masculine identified.
Right.
So
right, or just in like an animal or something.
Yeah.
Sagittarius. And Mars is trining Jupiter that day, so I think that's also a really awesome blessing, because Mars trining Jupiter is like, that's about your action, like having a bigger effect on things, or being more just being more powerful somehow. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, with the Virgo moon at that point, it's trining Uranus, and you see it's there conjuncting Mars and Mercury right in the middle. So just more amplification of the Virgo vibe we've been talking about. And yeah, we've just talked about the Neptune opposition as well there. The moon joins that opposition.
Yeah. And I meant to
So
say,
you have sort of on the opposite side, Neptune is about dreams, right? Neptune's very dreamy, but it's retrograde. So it's also asking, and when Neptune is retrograde, you have the opportunity to make sure you are not under delusions. It has a way of popping bubbles of that gives you a much better chance of seeing things clearly, frankly, than with a Neptune direct.
Especially about like leadership and stuff that we've been talking about with those oppositions going on with Chiron and Zeus. And with it pointing to Neptune, it's sort of pointing to, and it's coming from the South Node, and the Sun, and Zeus and the South Node are actually together, and the Sun. And so if the two of them are pointing at Neptune, it's sort of saying, this is where you're going. This is where you came from. Are you sure this is the illusion you wanted to have? Are you sure this is the vision you had? And I think that if you have that, you should really visit that experience for a little while. So if you come to some sort of illusion or questioning something on Friday, I would definitely take a deeper look at that. And earlier I said Mars, I even wrote it on here, Mars trine Jupiter, but it's actually trine Uranus. I meant to say Mars trine Uranus. That could be very unexpected and sort of like very fast. And it could be very earthy because Mars is in Virgo and so is Uranus is in Taurus. They're both in earth signs. So that kind of almost makes me feel like it could be very like fast, fiery, but earthy. It almost makes me think of like whatever's happening in Maui, but that's already happened. So this is Friday.
Well, and you have that same yod now. Neptune and Pluto are pointing at the sun,
right.
so it does feel hot,
Right, exactly.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's that once again we have multiple things pointing at the same kind of energy.
Right, exactly.
And you also said that uplift because there's also a kite with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus.
Yeah, the kite really perfects on this day. You can see the dark blue lines there.
There you go.
On Saturday. So the kite is really about helping us fly towards what we want. Especially it will involve the part of fortune in Sagittarius on Saturday. So maybe something really makes you feel fortunate that you're doing on Saturday. Something really makes you feel like this is really what I'm supposed to be doing, or maybe you just have fun with your family or something.
Right.
And also with Neptune, and pulling back and looking at relationships, there's something about the kite. And when we engage all those parts of us, our intuition, our spirituality, and even our illusions, and even with the opposition of Pluto and Juno there, I still feel like, even if your relationship is going through some changes, there could be a real blessing on this day on Saturday.
Definitely faded energies. We still have two fingers of God, two yods. We already talked about the first one that's still in play, and then the second one becomes the moon and Juno pointing at Saturn. Quincunx
Okay.
and Saturn. Yod's finger of God, quincunx's. These are all the same thing. It's faded energy is what it means. It means that you might have a moment when you say, "Why is this happening?" And it's fate. It's not something you can explain. It's just you're on for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So be flexible, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and work the part of fortune in Sagittarius. That really is your best bet.
Yeah, and the thing is,
because the moon is in a sextile with Juno, and a trine to Pluto. So you have some flow energy, but you also have, well, we've already talked about those oppositions.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and there comes a perfect opposition of Lilith and Saturn, because Lilith will come into 4 degrees in Virgo, and she'll be directly across from Saturn at 4 degrees Pisces.
Boom.
So it will be a perfect opposition, and so it could be kind of intense in that way. That's going to be feminism versus masculine. That's
going to be a lot of talk about the Black women judges and DAs that are taking Trump down.
Woohoo! Go!
And all the chat shows on the weekends where they just talk about the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah,
this will be like they'll be just so into it.
And also if there's a feminist part of your life or some sort of independence, it could really pull on the system or how it goes against the system, or you could feel very much like you're standing up to the system, like you're against the system, or you could be in contradiction to it. Try not to be a walking contradiction, but hey, shit happens. That's how we change. Okay. I think sometimes you have to be a contradiction for a little while before you actually change, actually. So don't be surprised if that happens, even if you catch it. Now, Jupiter is still sextiling Kronos. So if there's some sort of expert work that you're doing, you want to pay attention to that, because this is about Kronos is about experts and things that are high. including flying and things like that, in case that's going on in your life somehow, or you're at the top floor of some building or something. It could really teach expansion, especially being up high. Okay. And Vesta trine Zeus, that's actually really beautiful because Zeus is about leadership, especially honorable leadership in particular, and Vesta is about your spiritual your spiritual path. And so if there's a part of you that's saying, hey, I have to be a leader in yoga, or I have to be a leader in magic or whatever, that's going to be coming forth on this day. It's going to help you. It's going to happen very easily without much effort.
Interesting, because what you just said has that same resonance of when the moon enters Libra, because it's the exalted artistic beauty, creativity, charming.
And Libra is all about doing everything fairly, including leadership. Anything they do, anything they touch is about fair. It has to be fair.
Yeah.
Like it won't sit well in a Libra's belly if it's not fair.
So it's interesting what you said just prior to that with the whole thing with Zeus, and now you have it sort of reflected also with the moon. And you have the moon opposing first it's going to conjunct and pass over all those Virgo placements, and it's opposing the North Node in Chiron. So there it is again and again. Opportunity to heal,
especially with the Chiron and Aries, because then we come back to that leadership thing.
Yeah.
And so I find it interesting that we're going through this whole Trump ordeal with Chiron and Aries.
Yeah.
Because it's actually, I mean, that's where Chiron spends a lot of the time.
Right.
But I just think that it's interesting that that it's happening at the same time. And then also that Zeus is over in Libra, and that probably be there for a while. Zeus doesn't seem to move very fast as far as I've been witnessed. And Zeus kind of demands proper leadership and treating people the right way. And of course, Trump doesn't do that. And so and it's in Libra, which is like justice. Libra's like, hey, that's not fair for you to do that to people. It's wrong. And that's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So
powerful.
Can't
make this stuff up, as Anne Ortley is always saying.
She's amazing. Yeah. And I like to listen to Anne and try to learn from her. And I also do my own studying, as you can see. So sometimes, if you want to learn the planets, just learn them one at a time. That's what I kind of did. I learned a lot of the asteroids that way, the ones that called out to me. And then I started to see on my software that there was this Zeus thing and Chronos and some other things. And I started to read about Uranian astrology and just go study things, go learn things, go read things. It's good for you. That's actually, it prevents Alzheimer's. By the way, the more you learn, the better off you are. Engage your brain, like they say, use it or lose it. They're not kidding. It includes the brain.
Yeah.
So, so this week, I hope that you take the time to learn something new, especially with all this Virgo energy. Virgos love to learn. That's like a Virgo trait.
For
learning.
Sure.
Yeah.
As well as the Sag traits, though.
Yeah, there's several people,
learning
times.
is never ending with astrology. It's what I love also about music and the arts. There's no end in sight to your exploration as far as I'm concerned. I'm 58 years old and there's no tapping out on some of these things.
Right. It's so funny. Well, they say that about astrology, that there's no So we lost our connection there for a second, but anyway, there's never ending learning in astrology. Okay. And plenty of other topics too. So I've been shuffling the cards and focusing on what might come through in the cards for us today. And if I just want to mention that if you want to study astrology cards, I'm just going to say, learn the Rider-Waite deck.
Tarot cards.
Sorry.
I think you meant tarot, not a
tarot cards. If you want to learn tarot cards, if you want to read tarot cards, It can be really good. It can be really good for your heart and soul. It can help you day to day. You can pick a card a day. And one of the ways that I would suggest doing that is to color this book from Lacrosse. This is the Fool's Journey color journal. And each page has like a picture that you can color with like colored pencils or something, and then start to take notes and just meditate about what the symbology is, because that's really what tarot is about. It's really about astrology. And, there's even some details about what the card is about and stuff like that. So, you can easily tap into that and color it, and then take notes on the very next page and just write out whatever came to you. Okay. And I think that that's a really awesome way to learn astrology. So he's almost done the whole series, but you can get started. He's got the major arcana and the wand, and I'm pretty sure the swords, and I think the cups. I think I don't, or whichever one. He's missing one, but he's finishing it right now. Okay. But you can find a link in the description. Okay. So I'm going to pull 3 cards, and once you learn Rider Waite, you can read any deck really. And when I didn't believe that when I first started astrology, I started tarot, but later on I was like, gosh, I'm glad I followed that teacher's guidance, my teacher's guidance. And I'm glad that her name is Sandy. I'm glad that Sandy told me that, and I forever am now grateful at 47 years old. Okay. So the first card is the 8 of Wands. And this card in this deck is very much about messages from spirit. You can see here this amazing, what's her name? If you remember her name, Bright Hawk, you could tell me her name. Woman from
Frida Kahlo.
Frida Kahlo. Okay. Thank you, Bright Hawk. I just have a hard time with names. I'm a fairy. I can't remember my own name half the time. Okay, so these are messages, and I know that she did amazing art, and she was an amazing woman of color. And so you should also consider the artistic expression of those messages from spirit, and how they can come at a time when there seems to be nothing else. Because here in this image, she obviously looks like she's in the desert. And oftentimes the desert can feel what? Barren, empty, right? Okay. And I think that also her beautiful expression and the way she expresses herself is meant to be artistic and creative. And so this card is very much about that. It's very much about receiving messages from spirit. What messages have you got? Have you reviewed them? Have you looked at them closely? Make sure you review them. Now, this next card is actually really awesome. It's the 8 of Pentacles, and this is very much about showing off your work, and this is in the here and now. So this is in the past, you got messages from spirit, and here this is about the expression of your work, the presentation of your work, including especially creative work, and work that you do that makes money, whatever that work is. And this person is, pentacles represent financial things or resources, often material resources in astrology, in tarot. And so I don't know why I keep doing that, but is Mercury going in retrograde?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
See
what happens. See what happens. Virgo. I can't help it. And so so this person's expression, they're sort of displaying their work, displaying their resources. And it's more of like a feel good thing. Okay. It's not like they're bragging. It's more like, well, I've actually done that. I've actually produced this or done this. I've done it. And that's exactly what that is all about. And it's really, yeah, we both have the number 8, and number 8 is about double eights, especially, or triple eights, is about abundance and wealth in life and fortune in life. Okay. And now
the 8 of Wands and the 8 of
Yeah, Eight of Wands, Eight of Pentacles, and now this is the Five of Cups. And this card is very much about this person who is feeling very emotional, but this isn't necessarily about being sad. Although the person might be feeling sad, they actually have other things to be happy about. They're just not engaging those cups. See the cups behind them? That's exactly what that's about. They're not turning around and looking at the blessings they do have, at the cups that are upright, at the birds that are flying, right? They're looking at what is spilt and splashing in front of them. And that's what this is really about. That's what this card is really about. It's about, being deep in those more depressed, down emotions and not necessarily seeing the light. Okay. So be careful of that in your future. Again, Spirit, remember your messages from Spirit, whatever they might be. If you've recently had someone pass, yes, I'm talking about signs. Yes, I'm talking about other messages that have come to you from however, I seen a moose a couple of weeks ago, just came walking right up in front of my house, just like, hey, how you doing? Walks like 10 feet away from my front door. Holy cow. And is that a sign? Yes, it's a good omen. And thank goodness, because I had a doctor's appointment that day, okay? So this is Eight of Wands, okay? And this is very much about pay attention to those kinds of messages, like the moose and other things like that, okay? And then, of course, there's also, this is about displaying your work and being proud of your work. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your work. The problem is when you don't make room for other people's work. And so that's when pride gets in the way. But I think that pride is about balancing. I'm a Libra moon, so everything's about balance to me. But anyway, so your messages and being proud of your work and displaying your work and kind of being like, wow, I did that, and being proud of yourself for getting that far. And then, of course, this is the Five of Cups, where just be careful in the future, of forgetting about the good parts, forgetting the good things, and focusing too much on some down energy, some lower energy. And sometimes you need to go deep into that energy. I totally get it, Scorpio rising here. And you could just go flowing in that water and take a swim and then come up for air and make sure you turn around and look at those good things. Okay. So just make sure you don't get lost in the waters. All right.
Great reading.
All right.
Well, I hope this helps everybody.
Yeah, and thank you for listening and tuning in to Rainbow Soulstrology astrology forecast. I mostly just say astrology in the typing so that if somebody doesn't know Soulstrology and they're searching for astrology, they'll still find us.
That's right.
But please share, please comment. We want to hear from you. I love when we get to see people. We've been at a few like Pride events and stuff like that where we see people and they're like, hey, I listen to your podcast. I'm like, you do? Thank you. I love knowing that. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a good week. It's not going to be that bad. You'll be fine. There might be some surprises this week with Uranus at play, but you'll be just fine. Okay?
Have a great one. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are a perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.